Hello and welcome to the Cleaning Closets Virtual Gallery Talk. I'm your host and creator of Cleaning Closets, Jonathan Mayo. My pronouns are he, him, his, or anything respectful. Cleaning Closets is an oral history project that's been collecting and sharing true coming out stories from both sides of the closet door since 2012. So that means the people coming out as well as the people they come out to. Hopefully, by hearing both sides, we can bridge the gap and create tolerance for the queer community. You can learn more about the project at cleaningclosets.org or any of the following social media platforms. This iteration of the project was partially funded by a grant from Just Fund Kentucky. And we'd also like to thank our fiscal sponsor, PFLAG Central Kentucky. Stay tuned later for a special word from their president. And we'd also like to thank all of our family and friends who are ally supporters of the project. In today's program, we'll be talking about the latest iteration of the project, the 2020 Tour, which is an exhibit that was co-created by my sister, Frances Mayo. And
Hey guys.
It's a series of portraits and stories collected from Kentuckians across the state and was supposed to tour to a different city in Kentucky each month in 2020 until the world went on pause. Hence the reason for this virtual gallery talk, where my sister and I will talk about the portraits, the stories, and the behind the scenes process of the project. But we'll be joined by this panel of esteemed guests you see here, all of whom made this project possible. Let's see. Let's stop hearing from me and let's meet our guests. First, we have Joseph Frazier, the director of the Office of Identity and Inclusion at Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky. Hi, Joe.
How's it going?
Hey, and what are your pronouns, Joe?
He, him, his.
Great. I can't wait to start talking to you a little bit later about the things that you do at Bellarmine. You all were the first ones to host the exhibit before it went on pause.
And what a pleasure.
So I'm excited to talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's introduce our next guest, activist and organizer of the Shelbyville Pride Festival last year, Leslie McBride. Hey, Leslie.
Hey.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
And what are your pronouns, Leslie?
She, her, hers. I guess that's correct.
Great, thank you. And so, funny story, Leslie is actually the namesake of one of our best friends growing up in Shelbyville, mine and Frances's. So glad to have you here. Let's see. And then next we have Dominic S. Casanova, performer and my friend. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I just had to move around and find another place because my phone's about to die.
Oh gosh, that would be important.
Yeah.
And what are your pronouns?
He, him, his.
Perfect. I love it. And then last but not least, my fabulous sister and wonderful photographer for the project, Frances Mayo.
Thank you. Hey guys. Hey, how are you?
And what are your pronouns, Frances?
She, her, hers.
I love it. Great. Okay. Are you all ready to walk through the exhibit with me?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so instead of a traditional artist statement that you would find in most exhibits, we decided to use a 4-page letter that we actually weaved our stories into, along with the stories that we collected and kind of the journey that we had collecting those stories. So you can see that here. I won't pause on here too long. I do like that the colors are of the bisexual flag. And so it kind of helped me and my sister separate our voices and then have a voice together in the letter. And then it also kind of mimicked the letter that I wrote to my dad when I came out to him at 19. I wrote a multi-page letter to him and squeezed in a little line about being gay and then stuck it under his pillow and drove 13 hours to the coast. I don't recommend that way to go when you come out, but so this was kind of a personal touch for us. But the first picture that you actually see in the exhibit is the closet door itself, which was created to mimic the logo. And just so you all know, that logo was donated in kind by Moises Valleda back at the original production in 2012. Frances, you actually made this door because I live in Chicago and you're out in Kentucky, so you made this door. Can you tell us a little bit about your process with that?
Building it 3 days or so. A lot of fun, a lot of trials and tribulations. Again, battle wounds, but I think it turned out pretty well, and I'm pretty proud of it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm proud of you for it. Yeah. And it was actually part of the exhibit that toured with us, as you can see here at Bellarmine University. So this was the first leg of the tour. Joe, I don't know, because I was nervous. I'm going to tell you all this. I was nervous if the door was going to be too cheesy or if it would be actually a great addition to the exhibit. So Joe, can you tell us a little bit about how some of your students received it, how they responded to it?
Definitely. So the students love the event overall. I think, the door really just brings home the title of the exhibit and getting across the point, or at least illustrating that point about the coming out process and, a play on that term coming out of the closet, right? So the students really loved it, and being able to bring other faculty on to see it and just the outside Bellarmine community. I think we're going to get into it later. But one of the things that was really, I would say, revolutionary about this event, especially on Bellarmine's campus, is because it's a LGBTQ plus focused event on a Catholic institution that hasn't fully decided how Catholic they are. And so this was a perfect opportunity for us at Bellarmine to even begin pushing the limits, 2020 new year, and embracing all the identities that make up our institution.
Yeah.
So,
and this was your first Pride event on campus, wasn't it? Part of it.
It was a first Pride event as a part of our first ever Pride month. Yep, in the year 2020, we decided to do a whole month in January to kick off the new semester for the first time, and it was great to be able to have this exhibit for the full month as well. But as far as for being part of the community, for the community, by the community type event, OII is the perfect space for that. So just for those who don't know, the Office of Identity and Inclusion is basically our cultural center on campus, our LGBTQ plus resource center on campus, all in one space. And this is where you'll find the majority of students hanging out, the different groups, identity groups across campus, especially Be United, which is our LGBTQ plus group, organizes out of the Office of Identity and Inclusion. And so, this is guaranteed, basically folks to come and see the event, to come participate for opening night, and even just to be on display for the entire month. We were able to have the rest of the university community come in and out, and even it's crazy how many things lined up, because this was also at the same time as the office was going through a renovation. Mm-hmm. And so we had just acquired this extra space too. And so we had more room to host the event and also showcase more space that was donated to our office for our LGBTQ plus students, as well as our students of color on campus. So everything, if there's such thing as perfect timing, it all lined up for this event.
Yeah, and thank you once again for hosting us. I know it really meant a lot to me and Francis, for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
And then next you'll see we were at Midway University, and that was the last leg of our tour. But that takes us into Shelbyville, Kentucky, into the second page of our letter, which basically talks about me and Francis growing up in the 90s in Shelbyville, Kentucky. Very Bible Belt, very, I feel like in that day and age, we were told, if you're gay, you're going to get AIDS, you're going to die, and then you're going to go to hell, in that order. So, Leslie, I'd love to chat with you a little bit. This is actually one of the first portraits we took at the Shelbyville Pride Festival, and you happened to organize that. So do you want to chat a little bit about, like, why did you do that? What were some of maybe the obstacles you faced?
Well, first, I'm a member of Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and I've been on the board of the Kentucky Fairness Campaign. And we have been advocating, of course, for years for statewide fairness law, and on a local level for 7 years for a local fairness ordinance. And we were unsuccessful. And I remember we did a poetry contest, a spoken word contest one time. And we were basically, because of the fairness ordinance, I felt like we were shunned basically by the superintendent, and he didn't get the word out, even though we took it to every school, because we were for the fairness ordinance. And that made me just so angry, and it just made me think so much about kids that were bullied and I just wanted to have a safe place for them. So that's really what made me do it.
I love that. Okay, and that's great. And so, how long have you been in Shelbyville?
My whole life, pretty much, except for out just going to school different places. But I'm 60 years old. I'm older than any of you guys. I'm sure maybe all of you put together. And I've been there from the beginning when people didn't talk about that or ever know about it. We've come such a long way, but we have such a long way to go. So
yeah,
and I came from, as you know, same community you did, very conservative, very racist, very homophobic, frankly, so.
Oh, I remember.
Change it up a little bit.
I definitely remember. And I kind of expected that when we went back to the Pride Festival. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was like, are we going to run into protesters? Are we going to run into people that, haters, I guess, basically. Yeah. So what were some of those obstacles you faced? Because that's actually, let me just preface it with this. So when we got there were protesters, they were handing out religious pamphlets, and then Francis and I set up our booth, and we were kind of closer to the megaphones than other people. Other people were kind of closer to the DJ, so they didn't hear what they were shouting necessarily. And then when people would come to our booth, they'd be like, Jonathan, how are you handling listening to all of this like negativity being shouted at you? And I said, well, I'm kind of desensitized to it, which probably isn't a good thing, but I think it also motivated me because I was like, that's exactly why I'm here. Because I knew when I found out from our friend Leslie that you were doing this Pride Festival, we knew we had to be a part of it. And so we set up a booth, we got a lot of these pictures. Now, I was surprised at the turnout. Were you surprised at the turnout?
I was absolutely surprised and very pleased with the turnout. I had no idea what to expect either. No idea.
No idea.
I didn't know if there would be 25 people there or hundreds. And it turns out there were hundreds of people.
Hundreds. Did you see a lot of familiar faces, or were there a lot of new faces for you?
Both. I saw a lot of familiar faces. I had many family and friends that were there, but I also saw people that I'd never seen before in my life that came out for it. And mostly the kids with the Gay Straight Alliance. Oh gosh, I'm kind of a loner and like to do things by myself. But once I met these kids who were so eager and just innocent and honest, and it just it just helped so much. And they did so much for the project, and so I'm just thankful.
And Gay Straight Alliances did not exist when me and Francis were in school. Not in Shelbyville, for sure. So that's a step forward. Now, Joe, you work with a lot of youth. Do you find that they are a lot more active than some adults sometimes?
So that's a tough one, because I don't want to downplay any of the activeness from from older generations, but just overall, I mean, Bellarmine's been making a lot of different strides. I know also we discussed in first bringing the exhibit having testing kits available and some things along those lines, and we weren't able to do it. But then for some reason, we got some more leeway come April, right before COVID hit, where we have students putting together packages in OII of condoms and some other testing things to give out into the community. So I would love to attribute that to the Cleaning Closets exhibit as well.
Okay,
and opening
I will.
that's when we had the first conversation, and that conversation kept going, and now somehow we were able to get those on campus. Now we still, as faculty and staff, can't openly distribute those like condoms and that kind of stuff, but that those resources are available to students. We've had other pushes now, so we have all of our now they're making new signs and designating gender neutral restrooms on campus. I'm trying to think, what are the other, I should have just brought out the list beforehand. But, definitely, again, talking back to the energy of the students, it's all, energy that they've been bringing to the table every year is more and more. And this exhibit also helped us to be able to kickstart things in more ways than one.
Well, I love hearing that because that's exactly what the exhibit's about. That's what the project's been about since 2012. So that's
very cool to hear. Very, very cool.
yeah. Yeah. So Leslie, back to Shelbyville Pride. So there was, like I said, religious protesters there. And one of the things, you know, the popular hashtag love is love came out a lot when when we were fighting for marriage equality. And so a lot of the young people that were there at this festival were yelling like, love is love. And then the protesters retorted with, well, what's your definition of love? And that's why I kept it in, that's why we put that as an interactive part of the exhibit, and then actually had framed those religious flyers as part of the exhibit, because it is the other side. And we weren't knocking religion. We wanted people to see the both sides. So what were some of the obstacles you faced with these protesters?
Well, first of all, unlike you, I wasn't expecting them. It took me off guard, and in fact, I had even when I rented the facility, I had not told them why I was renting it, because I was afraid somehow if we did it before the publicity, they wouldn't let me rent it. Mm-hmm. So, but then once we had the publicity and everybody knew, and it turned out, I just wasn't expecting it, but I was so angry, first of all, because here are these children coming they're so hopeful. And a little girl that was going to speak, that was in the Gay Straight Alliance, she started crying and she was too scared to even speak. And the people were so aggressive. So they provoked you so much and got way too close up in your space. Mm-hmm. But I did go up and confront them. My cousin's an attorney, I'm an attorney. We went up there and talked to them, and we did have a security in place, and we called the sheriff and a bunch of people, and they couldn't come to our facility that I'd rented, but they could go everywhere else. Mm. So we now have some ideas in place to lessen their impact at any future activities that we have. So oh my gosh.
Yeah, I saw you. So I met your cousin. So let's scroll through some of the pictures from Shelbyville. This is Omar. Francis and I met him, and he was so sweet and actually offered to share his story not only in English but in Spanish. So if you go to the website, his story is there exclusively in Spanish, and so that's super exciting. I loved that part of it. Then we met, I don't know if you know any of these people, Leslie, scrolling through this great.
I remember Omar. I'd never met him before, but I remember him.
Yeah, he was such a lovely spirit, right? And then here's Beth and Sam. And so Sam identifies as asexual, biromantic, and trans. I literally had to look up biromantic. There's always so much more to learn. This is so interesting. But both of Sam's parents are pastors. So another religious aspect, but the side where they're like, well, this, what did they say? Their faith was not an excuse to cast them out, but rather a reminder that God loves everyone. And I thought that was really touching and beautiful.
Absolutely. How beautiful. How beautiful.
Yeah. And then you can actually see me reading some of these stories, and Sam says one of them, because they wrote them on note cards while we were there, and we didn't have the chance. We were so busy, right, Francis? We didn't have the chance to read any of them.
Oh, yeah.
Until I got home, and then we recorded me doing it, and I'm bawling half of it. Here's your cousin.
Yeah, that's my guy.
So he came all the way up from Florida just to visit. So I thought that was really amazing. Did that mean a lot to you?
It meant the world to me. Yeah. Because he, of all my 10 million cousins, he's the closest. And I can remember going to his a movie with his mom about the AIDS epidemic, and that was before Tommy had come out, and she was like, I don't understand this at all, and his father was a big hunter, very masculine, and so he had a tough obstacle to overcome, and not to mention just our community in general. And when he came out at our family reunion, there were some people that again, I'm as usual angry, because there were some people that did not support him. And we've just last week, his dad died of COVID virus. So I was with him last week, and he still talks about the Pride Fest, and he loved your exhibit. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I got the chance to interview him later, and that was really exciting. So actually there's a video of me and him talking about the festival and kind of what happened, and with his law, knowledge, how he was able to kind of help navigate that situation. And I love his post here. I mean,
I do too.
I mean, you can, I mean, says exactly, he's hiding in the closet.
So,
Yeah. And like, it was really nice. That's why we got them, like, Laura is kind of helping Dean out of the closet, which I thought was kind of a nice image.
that is great.
And then here's this great, like I said, so Nikki is the trans woman here, and she and Brittany have been together for years. And when Nikki disclosed that she was trans, Brittany, you know, was confused, but like stood by her side. And I really like this because Nikki was in the military. So this, you know, trying to hide in the closet with that masculinity. I love this picture. Frances, I know you kind of really connected with Nikki. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, Nikki, beautiful soul. She was struggling to find her identity, and she kind of, you know, went down all kind of the wrong paths and things like that. Just all kinds of addiction problems, alcoholism, things like that. And until she really was able to, you know, find out who she was and be okay with herself.
Yeah, they were a really strong couple. I really liked them. But then there were also people that came in from Louisville, the Derby City Sisters. I don't know if any of you all know them, but they were super, super fun. Of course, we had to get their portraits. There you can see, well, I'll show you their individual pictures. That is Sister Slut Muffin the Magnificent, and then Sister Petty Davis. And then you'll have, this was Sister Breast Wishes, actually postulant Sister Breast Wishes at the time. She is now almost a full-fledged sister. And then that is Blair there, who is now a full sister. Both beautiful, amazing people to talk to on the phone and get their stories. But once again, there were the Derby City Sisters, which is a chapter of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. So they raise money for other organizations. And Leslie, you mentioned, you know, you worked with the GSAs, which the Gay Straight Alliances, which up here in Illinois, I think they've changed it to Gender Sexuality Alliance, which I kind of like because it's a little more inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
But why do you think that's important, Leslie, for to partner with other organizations?
Well, I think you're much stronger when you I work with, I go to so many protests, and there's just you just have so much power when you partner with other people. Like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, I've been to so many protests with them, and the more diversity you have, and then the more different kinds of people, and the more numbers you have, the stronger you are.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. And the sisters, they're so great. And we used to have a chapter here in Chicago, but not anymore. So I'm kind of sad about that. But then that brings us into the third page of our letter, which is kind of me and Frances. PFLAG, the Olympia chapter of PFLAG has this resource on their website that I think is really great. It breaks down the stages of coming out, and there's lots of different doctors that break that down. I really like the stages that they did because it was like pre-coming out, coming out, and then it was like exploration and integration into society. And I think this was like, so this third letter talks about me and Frances kind of in our college years. We had just come out. We're exploring those things. We're going to places like the bars in Lexington. Lexington has quite a few gay-friendly bars there. And I think that's important. I think since the beginning of, you know, protests and standing up, like bars have been kind of one of those places where it's a safe community space for the queer people. And I think that's so important. I don't know, like Dominic, I know you work in those kind of spaces. What are your thoughts with that?
Okay, so I really, I do think that they are a safe place for gay people because, I mean, like you go there and like you might have like a snooty person at the door, but I promise you that person is just gonna be to everyone. And honestly, if you went to them and you were like, hey, I need help, they would be there for you. I also think that the gay bar is a place for you to express yourself. I mean, with the whole Corona thing going on right now, I really need an outlet. And I'm just like, I would just love to just go and just do an open stage on a Thursday for like a small crowded room. You know, I mean, like the gay bar is a place for you to like go and dance. You can show off your freak flag with your clothes and everything. I mean, and then there's the lights and everything. I I just think that it's a really good place for you to express yourself and, uh, you know, the Madonna song, Express Yourself, or what.
Right. One of those bars that I've seen you perform at or have hung out with you before was Crossings. And so this is actually, I got the honor of meeting one of the original owners of Crossings. Mark is here, and that's behind him is his husband, Tim. So I got to talk to them about, their opening of Crossings in downtown Lexington in 1989. So we were actually at their 30th anniversary party and got to meet the new owner, which was super cool. So we have her portrait coming up. Uma Jules, who was with the Imperial Court, as we were talking about earlier. I love this picture. I got to hang out with her backstage and kind of shadow her that whole weekend of the 30th anniversary. So she did an event at Crossings. She did her regular gig at the bar complex. So it was really kind of cool to see her and then get like this behind the scenes action shot of her. So I really kind of liked that part of it. And, always meeting these people and hearing their stories is amazing. Here we have Dominic. What was it like to be on the other side of the camera for this project?
Well, let's see. I mean, a mutual friend of ours was always like, you should do it, you should do it, you should do it. And I was like, I don't know. So I was like, I've not even come out to my parents yet. But I do feel like being on the other side, getting to share my story, I thought I was the only one who had a story like it. But I think it was last year for Pride, I saw 2 or 3 people who had stories just like mine. I mean, they didn't grow up in the 80s or anything. I think they came out in like the mid 2000s where, like prep was still a little bit experimental. And it was just like, wow, it's just like, there are other people out there like me, but they didn't have the experience or the opportunity to share their story like I did, and I just think
that's right. You said that you hadn't fully come out to all your family yet. So now did any of them see the exhibit or online or in person?
Okay, so I've come out to my stepmom, and it was so funny because on Christmas, she was just like, you just need to go ahead and tell your daddy that, that you dance and everything. She wanted me to do that one. She wanted me to do that one on Christmas, but then she was like, okay, well, you're going to have to wait to tell him that you're gender fluid and everything another day.
And then there's your Instagram on there so people can follow you if they'd like. That takes us into Rebecca, the current owner of Crossings. She was super cool. Wanted to get this action shot of her making those shots, which was really great. I got to talk to her down in the basement of the bar, get a recording. So I'll be posting later in the year a little bit of our interview that we had together. And then that takes us to Eastern Kentucky. So that's a little more conservative, as Dominic was saying earlier, than maybe Western Kentucky. So we met Noelle. And I love this shot. Francis, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I love it because she described her story as falling out of the closet. So we had to capture that in an image.
I really like the shot as a motion shot. First of all, as a photographer perspective, the shots are fantastic. I enjoy them thoroughly. And then it just really tells her story. Like you said, her story was basically falling out of the closet, and that really depicts how she feels she came out. It's just falling out. So I think all around it's a great shot.
Yeah, I do too. And she was super sweet. Her girlfriend was super sweet. We have a few pictures of them on the website together. Her best friends. I, for some reason, was not in my house and didn't have a piece of paper. I was at my friend's house, so I grabbed this paper bag and started writing notes on the phone call interviewing her best friend. And so the paper bag actually was framed and placed in the exhibit, which was kind of a fun, interesting touch, I think. Noelle's story was really interesting because I think it's one that the themes behind it. Everyone's story is unique, but there's always connecting themes, right? And hers had a lot to do with religion, of how she felt really scared to come out because of that. She had some depression, and I think that's very common. You see that a lot, I think, in the LGBTQ plus community, especially with young folks because of bullying and stuff. I don't know, Joe, do you see that a lot on your campus with new people that probably are starting to come out if they haven't already?
So I I'm going to say yes to that question. We in general in the Office of Identity and Inclusion, with the different marginalized populations that we work with, we know that yes, that's definitely an issue when it comes to depression, and I guess compounding that with when we get into intersectionality with students of color and all of that, a lot of times it can go undiagnosed or it's taboo to talk about, that sort of thing. But one of the things that we've started doing is bringing counselors into the space where students have been taking more advantage of those kind of programs and opportunities. But that's definitely there. Whether it's and it's compounded by the different microaggressions that our youth experience in the classrooms, what they see on TV, just in their everyday experiences.
And especially now, right? Actually, I love that you bring that up right now, because our last portrait is the story from Jackson, Kentucky, this beautiful story about this mom and her son who came out to her when he was like 8 years old. And she was so supportive, but as soon as he came out, here's a little bit of a story here. As soon as he came out, a lot of friends disowned him because of religious factors. And then a lot of that intersectionality really comes into play with his story, because he was called the N-word, F-word. So it was this double whammy at school at such a young age too, like to be called these harsh words like that. And this mother stormed down to the school and said, this is not acceptable. That's not just hatred, it's ignorance, and she was like totally against it. And I love it. But yeah, I don't know if there's any more to talk about, but the intersectionality, why do you think that's so important to recognize in people's stories?
Yeah, I think the simplest way to sum it up would just be to say that everyone's experiences aren't the same. And I think it's very, maybe it's human nature, but it's very common for us to feel as though whatever our personal experiences are generalizable to everyone else around us. Right. And so intersectionality, right, was first coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, I believe. And specifically, she was so she's a lawyer, and in her writings about the experiences of Black women specifically have often been dismissed from traditional feminist theory, right? And so with intersectionality, it was brought up that, well, with Black women, their experiences are compounded both by the issues of discrimination and stuff faced by women, but also in having Black identity as well. And since then, as a term started to take off, Patricia Hill Collins, a sociologist, expanded that term to include basically all the different aspects of marginalized identity that we see in the U.S. and how, so the experience of a white man is different from a Black man, which is different from a Black woman, which is different from a Black trans woman, and all face, I guess, compounding levels of oppression as more identities begin to intersect, and how important that is for us to take in consideration in all of our actions and how things affect people differently. I went on a rant, so I don't know.
No, I think that was great. Thank you. Because, I think, like you said, even though that term's been around since 1989, I still feel like that's a term a lot of people don't really hear. So intersectionality, the intersection of different identities. And I think you're right. It's so important to recognize that, because we're not just one thing. And there's a lot of times other things compounding that impact us. So this is the last portrait in the exhibit. Like I said, I super love it. You can see those feathers kind of flying on the left side. I'm literally behind the camera, like throwing feathers, and it's hot outside, so some of them are sticking to me. And but the process was really fun, wasn't it, Frances?
Those pink feathers ended up everywhere, at every location. We left
all over Daddy's garage where the door is right now.
We left a trail. We left our mark everywhere. So
we did, but it was fun.
Definitely was.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to weave our journey together in the letters that we wrote as the artist statement, because the journey we realized was so important for us, not only as artists, but as siblings. We really got to know each other on a new level. As adults, we got to like hang out with each other when we don't get to see each other that much. This was probably what, a 2-hour drive, I want to say, from Lexington or something like that. And so
I think about that, yeah.
And then I'm driving in the front and Francis is in the back seat behind me, because then we've got the seats down on this side with the door laid in. So it was quite an interesting journey.
It was very interesting, very entertaining. I'm sure that
and then like
I'm sure that the people that were onlookers definitely thought that it was pretty interesting.
Pretty weird, yeah. And so I really learned a lot with this exhibit. And the final page in the letter just kind of wraps up how we've come to terms with things with our parents. And, you know, this project was actually inspired by a conversation I had with my mom years after coming out to her, because she kind of blamed herself for me being gay. And I was like, what? Like, oh, you have a coming out process too. And so Cleaning Closets was born out of that. And that is the 2020 tour. And thank you all for joining me today and talking about it. Is there any final thoughts anyone has before I end this call?
I just wanted to say that because I was born white and straight, like I have a privilege that I don't deserve, that I was just born into. And I'm so thankful for organizations like yours that, especially in this divisive time, works for just kindness, simple kindness for everybody. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Dominic, did you have something?
Okay, so I'm gonna relate two things. So,
Okay.
What's his name? Bellerman guy.
Joe.
No, yeah. He said about intersectionality and how it's more, you're more than just one thing. And I just think of it like a color wheel. So it's like you could be anywhere on the spectrum. Well, with the whole love is love thing, I feel like love is also on a color wheel spectrum. I just feel like love is on a spectrum, and honestly, you just need to find out where you are on that, and that's something that you're just gonna have to keep coming out to.
It made me think about, or at least just wanted to say for other institutions that may be, viewing this, and anyone really who wants to bring the exhibit out, it just does such a great job, I guess, reinforcing to students and other folks that they're not alone as they go through their processes, and the way that it captures happiness, pain, joy, and struggle it's astounding, right? And one of the things, in this time right now, and as everyone continues to fight for their social rights and civil rights, a lot of times these different marginalized groups, they get tired, right, of having to explain themselves and explain their humanity and why they deserve to be treated like anybody else. And what I really appreciated about this exhibit too is that it shares that experience without having to ask those folks, like the students, to keep explaining their stories, because their stories here. So they don't have to continue re-traumatizing themselves and educating folks. But if folks want to learn, for folks that are interested, they can just come to the exhibit. They can learn from everyone who graciously volunteered their time and have their pictures taken and share their stories here, which takes some of that stress off of everyone else who maybe doesn't, is just burnt out and doesn't want to have to keep going through that message. Right. So I just wanted to, bring that out there, especially for people who are considering bringing this kind of exhibit, just highly endorsing it, in that, give folks from different marginalized backgrounds a break, and, let's embrace these kind of ways to still bring the topic home.
I love that. Thank you. Well, thank you. Like I said, this project literally would not have been possible without all of the people here on this panel. Thank you all for watching back home. Stay tuned for a special message from our fiscal sponsor, PBLAC Central Kentucky. And you can find out more about the project, cleaningclosets.org. Have a great one. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Night, guys.
Hi, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining us again for the Cleaning Closets Virtual Gallery Talk. I am here with Linda Angela, who is the current president of PFLAG Central Kentucky, who happens to be the fiscal sponsor for the 2020 tour. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today. And what are your pronouns?
She, her, hers.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. And mine are he, him, his, or anything respectful I'll take. So PFLAG Central Kentucky is the fiscal sponsor for the 2020 tour, which, you know, was supposed to tour across Kentucky this year, but got kind of put on pause. So I don't know, like, what were your thoughts when, like, I reached out? Why did you all choose to, like, go ahead and work with me?
We were very excited, really, because of what you just said, the fact that you are looking at the coming out process from both sides.
Mhm.
This is something that we talk about all the time,
Great.
that it's a very long process for families, not just for their kids.
Right, exactly. And I realized that when I came out to my mom, and then years later we had a conversation, and I think I mentioned this once in one of your meetings, but she had expressed to me that she blamed herself for me being gay. And then I was like, well, what? I was like, I had no idea you were going through these emotions. But then I realized, like, the family has a coming out process too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so PFLAG stands for Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, correct?
Yeah, originally parents, friends, and families of lesbians and gays. That was in the 70s when PFLAG was started. So obviously now we're inclusive of trans, non-binary, etc., everybody. So we don't really even translate the initials anymore because it's too narrow.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. Now, can you tell me a little bit about what services you all provide?
Okay. Our most important service is our monthly meetings. That's a support opportunity for families. We usually have a speaker for the first half because we keep educating ourselves as things change. And the second half is an opportunity for parents and their kids maybe there to talk about what they're going through, what they need, what questions they have. So that's our support meeting. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, like I said, I got to be in on one of those meetings as the guest speaker talking about this project. And it was really, you know, it really brings you back to what the project is about. And then really seeing that support in the room was really, really amazing. I loved it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you didn't get to go see the physical exhibit because it went on pause before we ever got to make it to any of the cities that you were involved with. So did you have a chance to look at any of them online?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Did any of them kind of stick out to you?
I thought they were, I love the whole thing. I love the closet image. I thought the photography is beautiful. I'm interested in art, so I was attracted to certain ones for that reason. The one of Uma Jewell, the drag performer from Lexington, looking in the mirror, I thought that was just a great photograph. There was somebody else, let's see, Dominic.
I was like there was only 2 photographs that I actually took in the exhibit because my sister did all of them. And that was one of them because I got to, I think I was telling you earlier, I got to go behind the scenes as she was getting ready for a show, and kind of I shadowed her for like an entire weekend. So it was super cool. I got to see her perform. I got to see, get to know who she was behind the scenes. And so I really wanted that image to show who she was, even though the rest of them had the cleaning closet in there. Plus, also, it was not so easy to maybe drag that closet into the bar where we were. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, she's great. She was one of our speakers, and also the Imperial Court held a drag performance to benefit PFLAG a couple months ago.
I love that. That's such a great organization. Yeah. Okay, so did any other stories or pictures in the exhibit stand out to you?
Well, I think the images of gay men who came out a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just really touched by seeing people who've been out or able to get married, who've been together for a long time, and
Right. Yeah.
enjoy the freedom that, yeah, Omar, that's a great picture too.
Yeah, so that was at Shelbyville's first Pride.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So he came to tell his story? You know?
Yeah, so we hosted a booth at Shelbyville's Pride, and then had this door out in the field, and then we had a little tent set up in front of it, and people were coming to sign up. So as I was signing people up, my sister was photographing them, and so I got a little bit of their story, she got a little bit of their story, and then we talked about it later. What I really liked about him was he was like, hey, do you want me to just email you my story? Do you want it in Spanish or English? I said, would it be too much trouble to do both? So if you go onto the website, you can actually find the full Spanish version of his story.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I don't know, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with before I let you go?
Again, just that I appreciate that you're looking at both sides. I think it's helpful for families to see that. And, you know, in our experience of PFLAG, if you are an LGBT person of any age whose family is not accepting of you, it's still very supportive to see that there are other parents that are accepting. That's part of what our meetings actually do for some people. We really are like an accepting family for everybody, and that counts for a lot. So
It does.
we're
That's
doing the same
beautiful.
thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, kind of an extended family, a chosen family in some ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, which I think is a very big, important thing in the queer community. So. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm gonna let you go. Do whatever you have to do for the rest of the day. So.
Okay.